So today we're going to learn how to make this sphere in a three-dimensional shape. I'm going to start on a new project. So when we get to this first step, we have the canvas, and I want to stretch that out a little bit. I've made it into a square shape. Get out of there. And pull it out a little bit here and here. We're going to be working with the element of chiaroscuro, but also color, in the sense that we can use color. Warm colors seem to advance and cool colors recede to create the illusion of a three-dimensional sphere with light on it. We're going to do this in three separate layers. The first layer is a circle, and we don't want to stretch it or pull it. We want to keep it round, so we'll go to the diagonal bubble here. I'm going to take a sort of gold color, and I don't need any line. And then I'm going to do a magic select here so that we can keep this safe when we're working on other parts of the painting. Squeeze it in there, that's everything we need, so we're done. And we have this separate layer here that we can move around. I'm going to push this out of the way and create the second layer, which will be the background. It's going to be a square. I'm going to make this blue because the background we'll start with a cool color, even though we're going to paint on it. We're going to magic select this. And we're done. So now we have these two layers. And next we are going to make a third shape that's an elliptical shape for the shadow. I'll start with a circle, pull it wider and squish it down. We're going to magic select this. Done with that. So now we have these three shapes. And I'm going to put the background and the shadow out of the way for now. We'll come back to those later. I want to start painting the sphere. Get this as big as I can. Start adding some layers of color. I'm going to primarily use the spray can. It works pretty well for shading. And I'm going to take a color that's a little bit lighter than the original color. I'm going to keep the opacity low so we can kind of layer things. And just start lightening up the top of the sphere. With the spray can, when it's on low opacity, the more you go over a surface, the more opaque and solid it gets. So I'm trying for a nice smooth gradation. If it gets a little rough, I can go back to the original color, turn it down even more, just kind of put a secondary layer in there, which is the same thing I would do if I was using oil paint. Bring this down just a little bit. Now I want to get to a lighter color. It's kind of a yellow, but lighter than the one we have, using the custom colors. And start putting in more a sense of where the light is hitting up here on the top. Since we don't have to worry about going over the edge, we can go right over the edge because this is all a separate thing. It won't show up if we get paint on the background. I'll show you what I mean later. Then I'm going to take a white and start putting in the biggest highlights. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so I can just work on the very top. Turn the opacity down low. Just get this very top edge. Look, I've got the wrong color, so I'm going to undo that. Okay, let's get white. Just the very top edge here, a little bit. We got a little too much there. I'm going back with the yellow. Light yellow. Again, we want a nice, smooth, even transition. And I'm going to put in a highlight right in the middle. About like that. Might be a little much. As you see, I'm pretty picky here. Tone that down a little bit. This is exactly what I would do if I was using oil or acrylic paint. So we're starting to get the top of the sphere in place. And as we come down toward the middle, I'm going to introduce a little bit warmer color. I want a green, but I want it to be a little more yellow, like an olive green there. Low opacity, thick, right around the middle here, make this a little thicker. Start putting in, call this a plane break, where the light stops hitting the surface and it starts turning into a shadow. This transition is a little abrupt right now. So I'm going to take my gold and just smooth it out. A lot of times the light will sort of hug the edge. So I'm going to bring the light down a little bit. Okay, I like this green, but I need to go even darker and bluer. Something like that, maybe. Get a little darker. I'm just guessing here. What we're doing basically is transitioning to darker and cooler colors. And it's pretty abrupt right now, but we can fix that. The lower half of the sphere is cooler and darker. We're going to put some details in there later. All right, I want to go back to that green that I had. And work on this transition. A little thicker, even less opaque. Just making fine adjustments here. Bringing some up into the lighter area and bringing some down into the darker area. Once again, getting some of this gold, bringing it down, smoothing it out so it looks nice and round. Depending on what sort of surface you want the sphere to look like, you could make this look very shiny or very matte. Start putting a little of this gold in here because our colors are going to lighten up some. Making lots of subtle adjustments as we go. Gold up here a little bit and bringing it down to here. And I'm going to start working in just a little bit of the gold to suggest the reflected light down at the bottom. Maybe even a little lighter down here. Back and forth. That looks like a nice round sphere with light shining on it. I'm going to work on the very bottom a little bit. And I'm going to give it a little bit more reflected light down here. Smoothing that out. Sometimes these marginal liminal spaces between things are where you get the most interesting colors, between the lightest and the darkest. All right. Now I'm going to put a really dark shadow here right at the very bottom to make this a little thinner. A lot of times the very bottom of an object will have kind of almost a dark line where it meets the surface. Go even darker, try some black. What the heck? Once again, it's a little too much, so I'm going to go back. What I'm going to do now, I want to get more of this sort of in-between color, so I'm going to go to my eyedropper and just find about there is the color I want, and it makes it for you. Smooth this out some. Okay. I could work on this a little more. I'm not real happy with the highlight there. Let me just I'm going to cover that up and do it again. Bring some yellow down here. See if we can get the highlight to be a little more realistic. About there. Get really thin. And I can zoom in. Okay. I would spend a little more time with this, but you get the idea. Every time I do one of these, it's a little different. Something that happens a lot when I'm painting in real life. The highlight is always sort of the climax of the painting, but I have to go over it a few times. Okay, so there I've got my sphere in pretty good shape. Now, you want to get out of the brushes menu and get back to 2D shape. So you can select this. We can move it around and do whatever we want to with it, shrink it down. We've got it saved. We'll get back to that later. All this stuff doesn't matter because we've made a background here that we're going to use. And what I want to do for the background, I'm going to switch to the watercolor brush. Just kind of make some cool effects. And I'm going to start putting in some really dark layers here. Let's just see what this brush looks like. Less, a little thicker. When you start mixing colors with this, it does sort of look like watercolor blending. I want this to be dark in the background and also have a blue tint. So I'm going to put the black in, let a little bit of that blue show through. I'm going to create a purple color. Like that. Getting junk mail from art galleries. Not really junk mail. Okay. We'll take this color, turn the opacity down. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to just blend until we get a smooth transition. Since the sphere is kind of sharp and in focus, I want to make the background sort of blurry and cloudy to give it even more contrast and suggest, the sharpness and the reality of the sphere. Try some blue here. I need this blue to be darker, but more pure. Okay, there's blue, and we come straight down. About that. Still a little too light. Okay, there it is. You get the idea. This is where you can be really creative and come up with different color combinations. Still need it to be more blue. A little purple. Like that. Let's try that. Too light. Pull it down. It's something that will kind of blend. There we go. Blend in with the black. Bring this down. I'm going to take just more black. Start smoothing things out. And this is all going to be blurry and sort of out of focus. Turn the opacity down. I'm going to turn the thickness way up. So we're just sort of coloring things in. Bring this dark down a little more. You can use the spray paint if you want. It's just a slightly different look, a little smoother. Now when we get to around here, I want to suggest that there's sort of a floor that this thing is sitting on. So I'm going to start transitioning to green, maybe. Try this green. Go back to the watercolor brush. A little higher than I wanted. And I'll bring this down and work with it. Back to our medium blue. And we're starting to make the background interesting. Every part of a painting is important. All right, now I need to get even warmer here. Bring in some yellow. Layer it like this. Some more yellow. And go back to the green here. Sort of a transitional color. As you can tell, I just love playing around with this stuff. And I hope you do too. All right, just for fun, just to be weird, I'm going to put in purple here. I don't know. See what happens. Kind of nice. Purple. Green. Main thing is we wanted to get nice and light here where the base, the sphere is sitting on the ground. Okay, back to business. So you can do this any way you want, any kind of combinations. You could make the colors get lighter higher up. Let's just see what happens now when we put the sphere back here. It's starting to look like the sphere is sitting in space. And then the last element will be this this thing. Why can't we see it? We need to pull it forward, but we don't want it in front of the sphere. So we pull the sphere forward. Okay. Now, let's stretch this out. It's going to be something like that, but I want to work on this shadow a little bit. So I'll put these other things out of the way and we'll see what happens when we put it all together. Shadow is going to be darkest in the middle where the sphere is sitting right on it. And then as it goes to the edge, it will be lighter and warmer. So let's put that middle part in there. Dark. Let me go back to my spray paint. Something that. I'm going to use the same kind of transition out of this. To a green. Some intermediate blues in there. Shadows are really interesting. They're not just dark marks. The Impressionists founded kind of their whole artistic style on the idea that they didn't use black for shadows. They used colors, and that kind of changes the whole way the painting looks like. Light is suggested. Philosophical movement based on shadows and their colors. Just kind of guessing now because I don't know exactly what this will look like when it's there next to the in the background, but I'm going to lighten up just around the edges. So kind of not too much, so it will blend in. Just a little bit so it'll have a soft edge. A little more natural. That's the green. Smooth that out some. Now you can use oranges, reds, whatever kinds of colors you want, just based on the colors. The idea that the warmer colors are going to look like they're closer. All right, let's go back to the shape menu. See what this looks like when it's all together. Kind of a weird shadow there. We can always go back on the background and blend that in some. What you would do in an oil painting or an acrylic painting is use some of the colors from the background, put them into the other parts of the painting so that it begins to hold together. If our sphere was, had the light coming from this angle, we could maybe have the shadow going off like that. There are lots of different things to play with here. There we are. Go back to where you were. Okay. I wanted to, again, this is just kind of a quick demonstration. When you get to some of these finer details, you can go in and sort of smooth out that shadow a little more in relation to the colors of the background here. So that's the basic idea. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Create your own color sphere. After finishing the original sphere, I wanted to try some different colors, and I just applied the paint from the spray can right over the old one, and I got some richer, more complex layers of colors, which is the same thing I would do with oil paint or acrylic paint. So here's one that's kind of a purple sphere, a green one on a blue background,
And on this red one, I wanted to see what it would be like to have the sphere floating, casting a shadow. So when I worked on this, I went from the base red color here to a lighter, more orangish color, and then also worked in some areas of blue, cool colors mixed in with the red to create more value range and also more color variation.